Hey BookTube! So today I wanted to do a bit of a conversation about my Vonnegut books. If you've seen my channel, you see that I have my whole Vonnegut collection in the picture without Slaughterhouse-5, which someone's borrowing, and I mentioned that I think in the last video also. But I figured I would talk about my Vonnegut books. These are all of the Vonnegut books I've read. I think I've reread some of them, and I'll tell you which ones those are, but I wanted to do like a brief summary of each, tell you which ones are my favorites, and yeah, because Vonnegut's pretty much my favorite author ever, so. Also, I apologize for my unmade bed, but I am a lazy human being, so. Okay. My first one is Armageddon in Retrospect. This one, it's like a silver copy. I bought this. There's Vonnegut. What a cute little old man he is in that picture. But I got this at the last bookstore in LA, which is really, really cool, and you should check it out if you haven't already. This is a collection of short stories. It was okay. I read it, I think, in one plane ride. It's easy to read, as with most Vonnegut books. He's very, like, digestible, I feel like, but with really heavy topics, which I think is a really cool juxtaposition. But yeah, I liked it. Read it fairly recently. Okay, then we have Dead-Eye Dick. This one, let me see if I remember this one. I can barely remember this. Okay, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know exactly what this is about. It says it's about radioactivity, a decapitation, and annihilation of a city by a neutron bomb. So there's a search for absolution and happiness, which is a lot of Vonnegut books, I think, have that theme. A lot of them are about, like, finding happiness and being happy. This one, by the way, is not, I don't know if I said this, but this isn't the same editions as all my other ones, which bothers me a lot, so I think I'm gonna try to find this one in the same, like, series as my other ones, which look like these. So, Dead-Eye Dick. Then we have Mother Night. This one's really, I liked this one a lot, and I actually remember it. So there's Nazis and spies, and it's very, like, World War II, but it's funny, as with all Vonnegut books. It's very funny and easy to read. So yeah, highly recommend that. Also, like, a lot of these were written a long time ago, so there's gonna be some racist language and homophobic language at times, which bothers me, but, you know, it's a different generation, it's a different time, so that's kind of something you have to accept. But Vonnegut's also, like, one of the proponents for, like, equality, I feel like. Like, none of his books are, like, racism's cool. Like, it's all very, like, we are all equal, we're all human, and, like, I think he talks a lot about, like, the humanity of life and how we're all just trying to figure this out, you know, and we're all failing miserably, which is why some of his books tend to be pretty dark. Okay, then there's Look at the Birdie. I think this is one of the coolest covers, and it's, like, silver and cool. This one is short stories also. Let me see if I can tell you, like, some of my favorites. If I remember. It's been a long time. I think Look at the Birdie was my favorite story. But, yeah, so they're good. I like Vonnegut's short stories. I think a lot of them are really interesting, and some of them really stuck with me. I'll get into that when I talk about Welcome to the Monkey House, which is one of my favorites. But, yeah. Okay, While Mortals Sleep is the next one. These are, like, unpublished fiction. And these, I felt like this is a little disappointing, like, because a lot of, like, they're unpublished. They're not things that, like, he was proud of or anything. And it's still Vonnegut, so it's still worth reading. But, compared to his other short fiction, I'd say a little less into it. Then we have Breakfast of Champions. This is I bought a new edition of it, because mine is falling apart. I will show you. I also, like, cut it up to use for my bullet journal, which maybe I'll show you, but you can see it's Breakfast of Champions, and there's drawings in it and stuff, which I can show you. But I bought a new copy to treat myself. But this was the first Vonnegut book I read. I read that copy, and I found it in my mom's childhood home. And I adored it. And I was like, who is this writer? Like, he's... Like, I had an instant author crush on this guy. Because he writes like nobody else. And I was like, I need to read all of his books. So that's what I'm on a quest to do, if you couldn't tell. But there's pictures in Breakfast of Champions. He says in the book that Breakfast of Champions is like his place to put all these random thoughts that he has. What does that say? Visit Sacred Miracle Cave. But yeah, there's just like different drawings, and it's kind of just like him exploding on a page, and I love that. And it still has a story to it. It's a novel. This is a novel. But Vonnegut also is very different than other authors in that all of his stories kind of connect, and he reuses characters. So there's like Kazakh, who is like a time-traveling dog. And Winston Niles Rumford, who reappear throughout various novels. And sometimes it'll just be like a name, but you'll notice it. So I also have, I'll show you in a minute, I have a Kurt Vonnegut Encyclopedia, and it has all of the characters and like if anything's mentioned, and it tells you like what books it's mentioned in and stuff. But yeah, because they're mentioned throughout. There's also a great podcast that I will link in the description box called Kurt Vonneguys, and they talk about and review all of Vonnegut's books. So highly recommend that if you're into Vonnegut. And it's a good place to start, like if you don't know a lot about him, like you can learn about different books and stuff, although they do have spoilers, I think. Okay, then I read Bluebeard. This is about an artist. I really, really liked this one. It's funny and yeah, it's just really interesting, and I love the characters. Actually, I like love the characters. Like they're all like kind of despisable, but like still really interesting. Then we have Cat's Cradle, which is about Ice Nine and the creators of the atomic bomb and the destruction of humanity and stuff. And it's very well written and interesting, and has a twist ending also, which is not like Vonnegut, but it's good. Okay, then there's Welcome to the Monkey House. I love this edition of it, by the way. It doesn't look a lot like the other covers, but I think it looks really cool. Also, this little thing that's on the spine of all of the books is actually an asshole that he drew in Breakfast of Champions, and he like draws it in his signature and stuff, and I think it's really cute. It's like an asterisk, but it's funny. My favorite in this is probably Welcome to the Monkey House, which deals with like a rapist and like kind of justifies what he does, which is really bizarre and interesting, and there's like poetry, and it's really, really cool. Also, Harrison Bergeron is fantastic, and I actually read that in my 7th grade literature class, but that's a great one. This is my favorite short story collection by far. I want to reread it, but yeah. And then we have Palm Sunday. This is autobiographical. I didn't enjoy this as much. It's a lot of like him talking about himself, as an autobiography often is. And like not all of it's like super interesting. There is a cool interview with like a magazine reporter that I thought was cool, but yeah. This is probably my favorite. This is the Sirens of Titan. I just reread it. It is about a family, kind of. That's not how I should describe it. It's about a man who ends up working in the army of Mars and like having sex with a woman and having a family, and then he is like trying to find his family after they erase his memory, and there's Winston Niles Rumford, the time-traveling man with his time-traveling dog, that kind of play God and create this new religion, and it's just so profound and impactful. So, love that. Then there's Galapagos. This is about Darwin and a group of people that go on a cruise to the Galapagos and then end up having to live there and creating kind of a new civilization. And also, like, if you think I'm, like, giving spoilers, I'm not. Vonnegut will tell you the endings of the books, like, at the beginning. Like, it's just a thing that he does. And it's cool, and it, like, still... Uh-oh. My computer just, whatever. Anyway, it's cool though, and you never feel like he's spoiling it, like, because you still want to find out. Like, you still want to find out, like, how it happens. He'll tell you, like, by the way, like, this character is gonna die, and you're like, what? How? And so you keep reading to find out how he actually dies. So I really like that aspect of his books. But that's Galapagos. Then there's Player Piano, which is all about, like, technology, which is also a common theme, because he's kind of sci-fi. I would not categorize him as sci-fi, but some people do. But this is a lot more about technology and robots and a supercomputer. And then my last one that I have here is Slapstick. This is a book that he wrote for his sister. This one I think has, like, the most, like, really questionable material. Because they're twins in the novel, and they, the character that his sister is based off and himself are twins who have, like, superpowers when they're together, but then when they're apart, they are, like, morons, kind of, I guess. And so it's hard for them to kind of live, and then they're separated and stuff. And it's really tragic, but beautiful. And I enjoyed it. There's a lot you have to look past. But I liked it a lot. Okay, and then there's Slaughterhouse-5. I would insert a picture, but I don't know how to do that because I am not good at iMovie. So, just know, Slaughterhouse-5. Which is his most famous novel. It's about pacifism, and he was in the Dresden bombing in World War II, where a lot of people were massacred, and it was really, really horrible. So he talks a lot about that, and then there's also aliens. So I guess if that's the only, like, soundbite you need, there you go. I hope that sells you. But it's actually, like, not my favorite. It's the book he's the most famous for because it's about pacifism and it's the most, like, I guess, relevant to history and stuff. But it's not my favorite. I like Sirens of Titan. I think that's my favorite. Let me show you my encyclopedia. So this is my encyclopedia. It's very large. Yeah, I think it's really pretty. I love the cover. And it was written by a guy that was friends with Vonnegut. And so it's kind of like a love project, which I think is really cool. And the Kurt Vonneguys talk about that in their podcast as well. That's where I learned that. But Vonnegut's a really interesting person too, so it kind of goes through that. Let me find, but you can, like, look up anything and, like, that's mentioned in the book, and they'll just, like, do a little encyclopedia article, which is, like, most encyclopedias. But yeah, and it's really cool, especially, like, for a huge Vonnegut nerd like me. It was a present from my mom. I probably never would have bought it myself because it's pretty expensive, but I think it's cool. So that's that. Alright, so those are all of my Vonnegut books. I hope you enjoyed. I strongly urge anyone to read him. He is funny and sarcastic and totally unbelievable, but believable, and he uses a lot of language that most people wouldn't, and he is so, like, profound and new, and everything he says is still so relevant, I feel like. So yeah, that's my favorite man, Vonnegut.